Blizzard's new balance philosophy, and why they have locked heroes behind the battle pass and don't think this will break the game. Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Stylosa. So in this video, it's going to be a chunky one because we're going to cover an interview that the developers held with the media. Now, in this interview, we're going to see comments from Walter Kong. We're going to see comments from Aaron Keller, of course, the game director, and we're also going to see comments from John Spector, the commercial lead. And Walter Kong, by the way, he is the general manager, I believe, of the Overwatch franchise at Blizzard. Okay, let's get stuck into this. This is the headline on Polygon. Why Blizzard believes Overwatch 2's Battle Pass won't break the game. So I read this and I was like, okay, cool. I really want to see why they think it won't break the game. Because you probably know by now, my stance is I really don't like core gameplay components, i.e. heroes, being locked behind a battle pass, because effectively it is like locking abilities away that won't be reachable unless you grind like crazy, apparently to level 55 in the battle pass, which is going to take the average player a few weeks, or you pony up the cash to sort of buy the power. I'll never like that, and I always think that cosmetics would have been the way to go. However, this is the world we're in right now, so we just have to deal with it. But Blizzard are going to explain why they made that choice in this interview. All right, so let's crack on with this. We do believe that Overwatch is a highly competitive game, and we think that that's something that resonates with our players. Overwatch game director Aaron Keller said in a Zoom call with media on Tuesday. And even with this change, we think that it will continue to be a highly competitive game. We know that that's really important for our players, and we have heard that players are worried about the difference in access to heroes per team. We think that there are a lot of changes to the game and a lot of details in this system, where we think the game will still be highly competitive after we go live with this. One of the big differences with 5v5 combat is that we've tuned a lot of the heroes in the game, and we've made changes to reduce the amount of hard counters that Overwatch has. We want the game to be a little bit more organic. We want players or people to have more impact, but we also want them to have more freedom in what hero they're choosing for any particular situation. Now, I want to expand on this a little bit because this is kind of interesting. So what this is doing here is sort of, and he does expand on this in a second, so we'll get to that in a bit, but what he is saying is, look, we want the game to be more organic, so there's more freedom of choice, so you can kind of play whatever heroes you like more often because there's less direct counters. And he will give the example of Cassidy and Tracer, which I think is the Aaron Keller classic example when it comes to this. But we'll get on to that in a second. But basically, yeah, you can agree with this statement. It's like, okay, less rock, paper, scissory balance and more fluid, more kind of maybe based on skill, more organic, and I can agree with that. But as we'll see in a second, this kind of ties into the whole, you know what, it doesn't matter if we restrict heroes because we're building a game where you don't need all the heroes, which yeah, is an interesting thing. And I'm going to rant about this in a second, but this is to do with like, what's the philosophy of the game? Is the game about swapping heroes to counter, or is it just picking a hero and playing that hero? Now, it looks like that's what they want us to do, but then I'll say, well, why is the DPS passive saving ult charge when you swap to a different hero? Isn't that encouraging players to swap? Anyway, I digress. If you think of some of the old matchups that we had in the game, if a Tracer player was harassing your backline and going after your supports, somebody on your team could switch to Cassidy. Cassidy is a great counter for Tracer, and if the Cassidy player was good enough, the correct response from the Tracer player was to just swap to another hero. They didn't really have a good answer for that. Going forward, what we've done is we're trying to take some of those really hard rock, paper, scissors interactions out of the game and replacing them with more player choice. So for that particular interaction, we've buffed our support heroes to make them more survivable so that they now have the ability to resolve that situation with Tracer with a higher success rate on their own. Okay, I feel like this is something we will probably come back to in the future and go, oh no, this was the utopian vision of Overwatch 2. But it's kind of just fell into the same pattern as Overwatch 1. And the evidence, Your Honor, that I'm going to submit for this is Overwatch League at the moment. The team comps are identical. Junk Queen is played everywhere, and essentially all teams run the same team comp. There is no variation. That is the team comp that they play, and that is it, right? That is a problem because that doesn't subscribe to this idea here of, wow, everyone can play every different hero. Now, there is a get out clause here, and I do like saying that phrase, but I think it really does apply here. Overwatch League is the optimal level of the game. The most highly coordinated teams playing the best, most powerful heroes in the strongest metas they have. They tend to gravitate towards the same team comps. In competitive, when we mere mortals play this game, this won't happen. You won't be going into a game and everyone's playing the same comp. But what might happen is players might kind of want you to play the more meta-perceived heroes. I think this could cause some contention in the game and a bit of friction, because even if you think of Overwatch right now, I mean, hell, think about the Overwatch 2 beta right now. Even, throw a bit of Overwatch League into this, but think about the tanks. If you were a Reinhardt main and that's all you could play was Reinhardt, but they've introduced Junker Queen into the game, who is just crazy in every way. If the enemy team are rolling a Junker Queen against your Rein, things could be quite difficult simply because they've got a better tank than you. Now, it's not never as cut and dry as that. You could be an incredible Reinhardt player, your team could back you up well. You could just outplay the Junker Queen. She could be bad, you don't know. It's never play that hero and instantly win. So I can kind of see what Aaron Keller is saying here, that picking Cassidy was seen as an immediate counter to Tracer, and then that's it, Tracer couldn't be played anymore. So when you look at Cassidy now with his sticky grenade, Tracer can still get around that. It's not an instant, oh, I'm dead because I'm flash thing, which is generally what it was on live Overwatch. So I can understand that a little bit, but I still think this is very utopian in its ideal, because there is always going to be stronger heroes. And as the game develops, I think we will probably gravitate back towards certain heroes maybe being weak, certain heroes being very strong, and maybe heroes that simply just don't get used, which we've seen throughout the life of Overwatch. When we were originally making Overwatch, we had considered making it as a free-to-play game with a limited hero roster and a limited hero pools available to players. In that world, players would have had a very small choice of heroes available to them to play at any time unless they put money into the game. We're in a really different situation right now. When Overwatch 2 launches, there will be 35 heroes available to pick from. If you're a new player to the game and Season 1, without putting any money into the system, you will receive 34 of those heroes available for you to pick from. Over the course of Season 1, you can unlock that 35th hero if you play regularly. So it's a completely different situation that we have right now. And it is. And again, this is a fair comment to make. But I'm going to say, what happens come Season 8, Season 9, Season 10, and somebody jumps in to play this game? They're going to be missing a chunk of heroes. And there is a good chance that the next hero and the next couple of heroes are really strong. We've already seen Kiriko at the moment, and she looks crazed. She looks crazed. And by all accounts, everybody who's played Kiriko so far are like, this hero is incredible. She's got a ton of survivability, high mobility. She takes a lot of skill to play, very hard to do damage with, but she's very, very powerful. You can see her fitting into the game, almost into the meta immediately. And also, she is the new hero. So people are going to gravitate towards it. But what about when the next hero comes out? And then the next hero, the next hero, the next hero? What happens if one of these heroes effectively replaces another hero? What if you get a better Lucio? So then if you get Lucio in your game, you're like, well, no, we need the new Lucio, not the old Lucio. Please swap your hero. So okay, that's an extreme example, but there is this worry I've got of that further down the line, this view of the way the game is giving access to heroes becomes really dodgy. And what will happen, they have kind of said that they maybe don't want to sell heroes in the store, but I think they probably will. Or maybe they said they would sell heroes in the store. Even I'm getting confused with this. But what happens in Season 10? Are you going to be expected to buy, 4 heroes? Or grind the game like mad? Do you even need those heroes? I mean, what Aaron is saying is, look, you've got access to all these other heroes anyway. So let's think of counters. Okay, the enemy team's got Pharah or an Echo. Well, everyone's got Soldier, so just play Soldier, right? Everyone's got Ashe, just play Ashe. But what happens if there's a better hit scan? Right? That's the issue I've got here. And that hit scan is really good at destroying Pharah. But I don't have access to it because I never played in Season 8. So, oh well, that's unlucky for me. That's the issue with this, guys. And I think looking at it and taking it at face value right now, you can agree with this. But if you change your viewpoint to a couple of months out, or maybe not a couple of months, like half a year, maybe even a year out, maybe even 2 years, what does this look like then? It is kind of worrying. Maybe I'm being a bit doomer at the moment, but I don't know. It is kind of a bit worrying. The majority of our players play a relatively small number of heroes. When they do switch heroes, we believe it's because they're switching to a hero that they're familiar with, a hero that they're effective with, and a hero that they are having fun with. And as the players get to a higher and higher skill level, that band of heroes they play, it actually narrows because it takes a really long time to get good at a hero to play at that level. We think that the higher level a player is, the more time they'll be putting into the game. So the chances of them having either unlocked the hero on the free track of the Battle Pass or just using the coins that they've collected in previous seasons to upgrade to the Premium Battle Pass is pretty high. We want players to catch up and unlock all of the heroes. If you were to come to the game late, a year down the line, we have a lot of avenues for you to play. Right, so one of the issues with this is the idea of one-tricking and this being the most effective way to play the game, and it is. I'm just going to straight up say that it is. I remember having all the debates around the launch of Overwatch where, oh, it's all about swapping hero, nobody's swapping hero, it's creating loads of toxicity. If you wanted to get really good at the game, you generally one-tricked one hero. You got super good at it. You know, I'm my own proof of that because I one-tricked Doomfist, got to GM, one-tricked Soldier, got to GM, one-tricked Winston, got to GM. You know, these are things that were possible simply because I didn't really play flexible. The moment you start playing flexible, yeah, it takes more time because you need to get proficient at other heroes. But what Aaron is saying is like, look, as you actually get better at the game, you tend to play less heroes. But if you're playing a load of the game, then you will get access to the new hero because you're just playing loads of the game anyway. So you will get access to that hero, which again is a fair statement. And he does allude to here that, yeah, if you come to the game a year later, there will be avenues for you to play, which we'll have to wait and see what they end up being. But still, there is a world in which you come into the game and there's a bunch of heroes that are not available, but you kind of maybe need that newer hit scan or need that newer support because they are, in essence, more effective than the heroes that are not available. And this does set a precedent of they could in the future increasingly make new heroes very strong, to increasingly make players buy the Battle Pass, increasingly sort of almost force them to unlock them to be competitive. So again, we're going to need to wait and see, but I do agree with what he's saying here. I don't want to totally dismiss it because it is true. Like, I do agree with this. Generally, players do one-trick heroes and they are reluctant to change. The only thing I would argue is that I'd add an additional thing to this. So when he says, when they switch heroes, we believe it's because they're switching to a hero that they're familiar with, a hero that they're effective with, or a hero they're having fun with. I think there is a fourth element. People did swap, and I know this from my own perspective, would swap because it's a counter. Now, what he said in previous comments in this interview is they want to get rid of those rock, paper, shotgun. That's a website. Rock, paper, scissors, rock, paper, shotgun. Where did that come from? Counters, right? So the Cassidy example, okay, yeah, it's great. If there's an enemy tracer and I'm maybe playing Soldier, I'm like, oh my god, I need to get rid of this tracer, so I'll swap Cassidy. That would be a counter pick, a counter swap, and I don't think he's actually kind of covered that here. But that's maybe because he's thinking in a world where they just don't want counters anymore. It is interesting stuff. John Spector, commercial leader and vice president for Overwatch, said that Blizzard has put a ton of time and energy into discussing how to make this system fairer for players, how to make sure that we're preserving the competitive integrity of our game. That observation that Aaron made about how hero swapping works in reality was pretty eye-opening for me when we first started working on this. What we actually see in the data is that the majority of players in Overwatch have a majority of their playtime on 2 or fewer heroes, and you can get to 99.9% of playtime for a majority of our players with fewer than 12 heroes. They have a cast of 30 right now, and when you look at how people are actually playing the game there's using a couple of heroes for most of how they are using a couple of heroes for most of how they play. Sometimes they'll swap and they'll add in a couple more heroes. So when we say it's actually going to impact the play experience if someone let me read that again. Let me be very clear here. So when we say, is it actually going to impact the play experience if someone has 34 out of 35 heroes? When we look at the data, we feel really confident that it's not going to. All right, so think about everything I've just discussed about potential better heroes that you don't have access to, that you need to swap to. Now, those could be seen as very edge cases. So you'd be like, well, Sty, the Soldier is 99.9% as effective as the new Super Soldier, Soldier 79, who is 1% better. So really it's negligible. And sure, that could be a world that we live in. I think what they're trying to do here is craft a game where you can just play the hero you like. And the more I think about this, the more it makes sense in terms of monetization. Because you think about it, if you're just a Genji one trick, or you're just a Genji player, right? You want that Genji mythic skin. So you're going to be invested in Season 1. You're going to want all the Genji specific stuff. And a year down the line, you might have a really rich Genji account in terms of all the stuff you've got unlocked specifically for Genji. Some of this stuff might not be available again. So you are very heavily invested. And again, if you're playing one hero, it's kind of similar to the way MMOs work, is you're playing that one class. I guess if you're not playing Final Fantasy, in which case you're every class. But if you're playing World of Warcraft, which is the best example because this is Blizzard, and you're playing a warrior, you just want to play a warrior, right? You just want warrior stuff. You don't care about mage stuff. You don't care about paladin stuff or anything like that. You just want the warrior stuff. That's kind of what's going on here. And I think if they push the game in that direction, it'll help them make more money. But I don't know whether this is just Overwatch boomer Stylosa speaking, but I still feel deep down, even whatever the stats say, the freedom of player choice to be able to swap to any kit available in the game without anything being locked behind a paywall or a grind wall was very liberating. And it did mean that there were times where maybe in a season, if I've played 80% of my games on Winston, 10% of my games on Reinhardt, but then maybe I've played 5 to 1% of my games on D.Va, and I don't play D.Va, but those times I needed to play D.Va because I needed Defense Matrix to shut down maybe the enemy Pharah, meant I won the game. And that is simply because I picked that hero, and I think they are maybe a little bit easily dismissing that from the game. Still be some of those in the game, Keller said, and there will probably be times in the future where we'll develop a hero that might have a new mechanic on it. It could take us a little while to get our head around the right way to handle that hero, but generally we still think that team compositions, hero picking and counter picking is an important element, or are important elements of the game. We just don't want it to be the only correct answer. So again, a little bit of backtracking there, saying, hey, we still want you to swap heroes, we still want you to counter pick, but actually we realize that you just play one hero, so we're building a game where you don't need to do that. That's kind of what they're saying, at least. That's how I'm reading it. You guys let me know in the comments below if I'm totally misreading this, but I kind of think that's the way they're going. Even with this change of putting heroes in the battle pass, we think that with all of the other systems that we have in place, and with the additional ways of unlocking heroes, and some of the ways that Overwatch has changed over time, and the way that we're changing Overwatch for Overwatch 2, we still have a highly competitive game. Even though some of our systems and some of our decisions that we've made to get there are different than what we started with. When we looked at making the transition to the free-to-play, one of the great goals we had was to be able to give original Overwatch players what they wanted, which was just continuous delivery of content, said Walter Kong, the general manager for Overwatch. We know that because players have been telling us that that's what keeps them engaged over the long term. At the same time, as part of a long-term franchise goals, we really want to be able to grow Overwatch to broaden its reach to many more players and fans, and in doing so, be able to deliver that abundant content. We've made decisions to continue to grow our team. Now, Overwatch, one of its main goals for Overwatch 2 is not to satisfy Overwatch players. It is to bring in new players. If you look at the development timeline of the game, if you go back to 2018, 2017, Overwatch is out, but it's starting to decline. Fortnite is out. There's a lot of young players, maybe 12, 13-year-olds, jumping onto Fortnite. Those players now, it's 5 years later, they're 17, 18 years old. That means they may potentially be looking for a new game. What it also means is there is a massive amount of Fortnite players who have grown up with the free-to-play Battle Pass system. This is second nature to them. That's all they understand in a lot of cases. Overwatch 2 is built for those players because they will be able to just fire up Overwatch for free. They don't have to pay. And then they will just see a Battle Pass, which they understand how to use. And then they'll go from there. In fact, Walter Kong was involved in the production of the Fortnite store. So in a lot of ways, you can see why he's moved over to Overwatch 2. And then you can kind of understand the way the monetization is working for Overwatch 2. So that's very much one of the core focuses of the game, is to grow the audience. I know Walter doesn't specifically say that in the quote, that they're trying to attract Fortnite players and that kind of can I say it, zoomers to the game, which we need. We totally need this. We need a bigger player base. We can't just keep servicing the existing player base. We need to grow the game. That's why we're going free to play. So you can see this is a way of doing that. And yeah, anyway, let's move on. Our core development team has roughly tripled in size since the launch of Overwatch, and we have many more folks working on partner teams. And we want to be able to continually invest in this live service game concept. So from the perspective of the business, this isn't free. We've spent a long time knowing how important this would be to players. We spent a long time thinking through how to be able to fund our continuous development of the game in a way that would still present fair and enjoyable experiences for all players, whether they choose to pay or whether they choose to play for free. And our approach in terms of players who pay is to deliver a tremendous amount of value. Why put heroes in the Battle Pass? Well, the heroes are the single most engaging content that we have in the game. And as we designed this model, it seemed to be a very strong fit to put those heroes into our new engagement systems. There is this goal to be able to not just deliver a great experience on launch in October, but to be able to continuously deliver content and experiences for many years to come. Okay. This is massively... I wouldn't have expected this comment to be in the public. I'm just going to say this right away. This is straight up saying, and in fact, actually, I appreciate that this is out there in public. I appreciate this is so blatant because it's just saying heroes are the single most engaging content that we have. So we designed a model that's a very strong fit for this, and it fits into our new engagement systems. This is straight up saying heroes will make us money, so we are gating them to make you pay us money. That is it. Now, the way they have done this, and this is what I do not agree with, and I keep banging on about this, but I do not agree with locking abilities behind grind or paywalls. I don't care if it's cosmetics and the cosmetics maybe look incredible. They could do all kinds of different stuff, like maybe different... Imagine if you had like jewelry, adornments, imagine mythic weapon skins, all of this. They could do loads of stuff. Instead, they've gone for what I think is honestly the cheap, easy way of just monetizing the game through heroes, because heroes are what Overwatch is about. And it has been the great travesty of Overwatch that it stopped producing heroes back in 2019, and we had all of that content drought. Heroes are what the game is built on. So this is a way of getting that content, but at a cost. Now, we have to be realistic here. There is no way Blizzard would support this game unless it was making money. And this is a modern system of making money. And they are using their most attractive asset, the new heroes, to make more money. Let me know what you think about this, guys, in the comments below. I think it's quite revealing, this is. The comments on balance, the comments on why heroes are locked behind battle passes, and the comments on just like how they perceive one tricks and counter picking and all of that. I think it's very telling, this is. And this might be something we can come back to in a few years' time and see if this actually did turn out to be true or maybe blew up in their face. I mean, I hope it works and I hope the game cracks on, because I give me Overwatch content. Like I can sit here and rag on these things, but I really want Overwatch content, and I know this is the price to pay for it. So I'm okay in some ways. And I think I'll end the video on this. The Battle Pass itself, these are designed to keep you engaged in the game. Now, honestly, the game should be engaging for you to play anyway. To have a system that is not forcing you, that's a very strong word, but that is heavily encouraging you to spend a lot of time to play games over and over and over again to get a certain reward. You're not playing the game for the fun of it, you're playing it for the reward, and I don't think it should be like that. And that's one of the great issues I've got with battle passes. But really, it doesn't matter what I think with battle passes, because they are in pretty much every major game at the moment. So I'm just a complete boomer going in against battle passes, something I need to come to terms with. But I think hopefully through this journey, as we get more information, more news, and of course as the game launches, we can sort of come to terms with this together. All right, guys, I've been Stylosa. Thank you for listening or watching to the video. I hope you enjoyed this. Remember, you can follow me on everything, which is at Stylosa. It's also at StylosaUL on TikTok. And yeah, I'll catch you lovely lot on the next video. See you soon.